everyone. My name is Danielle Ruger-Morawski. I'm the Associate Director of Partnerships at Parker Dewey and very excited to spread the word, whether you're a partner or you're not already yet, about micro-internships, exactly what they are and how you can share this with your students and with your employers, regardless of your role at your institution. But want to get started by talking a little bit about why Parker Dewey micro-internships came to be. And in large part, it's because of common challenges faced by students and recent graduates who are trying to gain experience. And what you see here on the screen are just a few examples of why some of your students may be struggling. Sometimes they're not sure what they want to do, so they're hesitant to jump right into a semester-long commitment. Sometimes they're trying to make a pivot, but they're having a hard time getting that first experience to make that easier. Sometimes they're seeing opportunities that are only unpaid and they're looking at their finances and they're going, that's realistically not something I can commit to. Sometimes they're just trying to build an awareness of different types of opportunities. And micro-internships exist to help students and recent graduates address all of these challenges and more, while simultaneously acting as a really valuable recruiting tool for your employers who are trying to reach these demographics, but are struggling to do so for the exact same reasons the students are struggling to engage. And part of that also has to do with student perceptions of traditional recruiting methods. So what you see here are the results from our recent student sentiment survey, where we asked students how they feel about traditional recruiting activities or traditional application activities. And as you can see here, less than a third feel that traditional application or recruiting activities allow them to accurately reflect what they're able to bring to an opportunity. And if they don't feel that writing a cover letter or submitting a resume or doing an interview is going to accurately show what they're able to contribute to a role, they may be less likely to apply for that opportunity. By contrast, 92% of those students in our survey said, we want to do a real professional project. That allows us to demonstrate our skills in a real way while simultaneously building experience we can add to our resumes. So this is something that is very appealing to students. Some other things that students are looking for when they're thinking about campus recruiting is opportunities to explore. Something else interesting that our student sentiment survey showed is that 75% of students are interested in learning about unfamiliar roles, companies, and industries, but there's only so much time, and they're not really sure where to start. We also found that over half are thinking about their career options by their first or second year, but a lot of traditional internships aren't accepting students until they are upperclassmen, that junior or senior year. So these companies are missing out on a really crucial opportunity to be part of your students' career journeys when your students really want them to be there and are most open to the widest range of opportunities. And simultaneously, since there's not as many meaningful opportunities to engage before then, your students are missing out on a really great time to explore in a meaningful way. The other thing that we see students looking for, more than half, are looking for flexibility. These students often have lots of obligations. First generation students, non-traditional students, student athletes, just to give a few examples, they have work obligations and family obligations and game and practice schedules that don't always make traditional internships or some of the other traditional recruiting methods accessible. Again, that's where micro-internships come in via Parker Dewey. So we are Parker Dewey. For those of you who are just joining, hello again. My name is Danielle Ruger-Morawski. I'm the Associate Director of Partnerships at Parker Dewey. And we are the micro-internship people, and we're trying to make that jump from college to career more accessible via these micro-internships. We have been around since 2015. We are the originators of the micro-internship concept, headquartered in Chicago, and there are over 5,000 institutions represented by the students using the Parker Dewey platform, and we have intentional partnerships with over 800 of y'all, and are very happy to be in those partnerships and appreciate it. But we connect thousands of students and recent graduates to these companies via micro-internships. And you might be thinking, okay, she's saying the word micro-internships a lot. What exactly are these, if you're not already familiar? Micro-internships are short-term paid professional projects that can be completed on demand by highly motivated early career talent. And that includes your students and your recent graduates. So breaking that down, when we say projects, what we mean is these involve a specific deliverable or set of deliverables. It's not going to be ongoing tasks. So there's not going to be a micro internship, for example, saying I need someone to man our front desk on Tuesdays or Thursdays. That's an ongoing task. There's no deliverable on that. You could, however, say, well, we're having trouble getting our front desk coverage figured out. I need a micro intern to compare and contrast different scheduling platforms or tools and give me a report. That would be a micro internship. These micro internships are also short term. Focusing on these specific deliverables mean most only take somewhere between 10 to 40 hours of work total. And I'm going to reiterate again, that's not a week, not 10 to 40 hours a week, 10 to 40 hours total. That's the amount of time it takes them to complete that specific project. And these are also on demand. So unlike traditional internships, with micro internships, companies don't have to think about it months in advance. They don't need to make sure they have a whole semester or summer's work of projects. They can post these specific projects whenever they realize they have a need. That could be today, tomorrow, next week. That could go on in perpetuity, but these are being posted year round. And we, Parker Dewey, are actually the employer of record for all of these projects. So these real companies are posting these real project needs, but how that works is they pay Parker Dewey, and again, they're getting real project work done, so it makes sense that they pay, and then we are the ones that make sure that the micro intern gets paid. So as the employer of record, we are the ones that are getting the information, the payroll information. We're the ones that are processing the payroll. If they earn above a certain threshold, we're taking care of the tax forms. And that makes it really easy for the companies who might not otherwise have the time to take on that administrative burden. And also allows your students to try out different companies, engage with folks they may not be familiar with, but still feel confident that they're only giving their payroll information to Parker Dewey, who they know they can trust. 10% of the total project cost covers that administrative stuff, and the remaining 90% is going directly to those micro interns and building positive associations and experiences. And we also like to clarify that micro internships do need to be professional. So using skills or knowledge that your students are learning in their degree programs, even if it's in their first or second year. So to sum all that up, these micro internships are designed to provide a valuable way for employers to access, engage, assess, and the end goal is ultimately for them to hire for longer term opportunities like traditional internships and full-time roles. So you may be wondering at this point, okay, this sounds good, but can my students do this? Who qualifies? Micro interns do need to be 18 years or older, so that's why most folks who are in higher ed programs qualify. And these are open to students or recent graduates. Now, we often get the question, well, where is the cutoff for recent graduates? And there is no official cutoff, but we like folks to be aware that the companies who are using Parker Dewey are using it intentionally to engage talent that could be a good fit for longer term roles. So if someone has graduated 5 to 10 years ago, they're established in their profession, Parker Dewey is not going to be a good fit for them to make a freelance living. Companies are going to kind of wonder why they're there. For recent graduates, however, who are trying to take that first step, or for maybe folks who are trying to make a career transition, so even if they've got great professional experience, they're early in a new phase of their career, this is a great resource. Micro internships are open to international students and undocumented students, and we're going to talk about those populations a little bit more in depth because there's some nuance there. And basically the nuance is the details are ultimately up to your institution. So if you work with international students and you want to know, can they do micro internships? Encourage you to connect with International Student Services at your institution. Now they can do these, and we've seen some really great experiences. They're typically done through CPT or OPT, sometimes pre-completion OPT, but your institution is going to know best what the rules are for credit-bearing experiences, if they can do this at certain points in the semester, if the student is far enough along in their program to be able to do OPT. So that's why they're encouraged to connect with their institution to confirm their eligibility. And they do need to make sure they confirm it. They do need to have that appropriate work authorization. All micro interns are reminded that if they're international, they need to make sure that they have that set up, but it is up to them and the university to verify that eligibility. Now, as mentioned, we, Parker Dewey, are the employer of record. So that means regardless of what company the student may be working with, if they're an international student and they need that offer letter on company letterhead, it's going to be coming to them from Parker Dewey. So they request that from us. Now, every once in a while, there are some micro internships that maybe are using this as a pipeline to an opportunity that they just know they're not going to be in a position to sponsor. In those cases, it might be that US citizenship is required, but those tend to be the exception, not the rule. And if it's the case, it's typically highlighted in the project description. For those of you who are working with undocumented students, I know that this can be a really tough population to support as much as we're trying to because opportunities are limited. But the good news is that micro-internships are accessible because all micro-interns are independent contractors of Parker Dewey, which allows international students or undocumented students to engage. So in many cases, this can be done even without DACA or TPS. They just need to have a valid ITIN number. And many students already have this if they were ever claimed on their parents' taxes or anything along those lines. And we're going to talk about different resources, landing pages, but if you have a landing page for your students, we also share resources if they don't have an ITIN number about how they can get that process started. And again, this is a really valuable resource for those undocumented students because as you can see from their quotes, it can be really tough to get that experiential learning in that situation, and micro-internships are accessible. So hopefully while I was talking about micro-internships, those benefits for your students are clear, but just want to reiterate again, accessibility. I don't think I did a great job of highlighting, but we encourage companies, if at all possible, to post these projects as remote, which means that your students can do them from anywhere as long as they have a reliable Wi-Fi connection. These are also real experiences that they're able to add to their resume or perhaps even their portfolio if they get permission from the company. But they will be adding it to their resume or their LinkedIn or wherever else as an independent contractor of Parker Dewey. Now, they are encouraged to ask the company, is it okay if I include your name in the description? And most of the time, the company is going to say no problem, but they do want to make sure they add it as independent contractor of Parker Dewey. Since these are project-based, the way they work is they'll connect with the supervisor, they'll get the details they need on the project, and then they are off and running and they'll check in, depending on the project, it varies how often and in what manner, but that flexibility means they can do the bulk of the work in a way that works for their schedule. And again, they are connecting with a real professional at the company with the project need, which means they're expanding their network, they're checking out different industries, different companies. And while not guaranteed, a lot of these companies are using micro-internships intentionally as a way to build a pipeline for longer-term opportunities. And a reminder again, every single Parker Dewey micro-internship is paid. That's something that is crucial to our mission because we know a lot of students can't afford to spend their time on something unless they're compensated for their efforts. And also, it just makes sense. If you're doing real work, you get paid real money. So circling back to some of those students who were experiencing challenges on that earlier slide, I won't read these quotes to you, but I will let you kind of take a look at how they said micro-internships help them with their unique challenges. And if you want to read more from the students' side of things, how micro-internships have helped folks, I am putting some micro-intern success stories in the chat as well. So now that we have covered exactly what the benefits are for students, a little bit about how it works for students, I want to shift to the other side of things for those of you who also have some employer contacts. It looks like we've got a good number of folks today in career services and student affairs, so you may know some employers as well, and want to highlight how this is not only a beneficial tool for your students and your recent graduates, but also for your employers that want to engage that talent. So one is it's easy. We're going to show you just how simple or talk about just how simple it is to post a micro-internship. There's also no commitment, which makes it low risk. Again, these projects are 10 to 40 hours in total. If for some reason the company is not happy with the work the student does, very rare, in fact, it happens less than 2% of the time, then it was just a 10 to 40 hour project. They're not committed to an entire semester or entire summer. It's a great way to maybe give folks a chance they wouldn't otherwise without having to start with a big commitment. Again, it's on demand. They can post these projects at any time of year. As mentioned, great way to see if someone would be a good fit for a longer term opportunity or get folks to enter in their talent pipeline earlier, much earlier, as mentioned, than is typically available with traditional internships that end up most of the time only being available junior or senior year. It's also a great opportunity for companies to build their brand. So companies, if they're trying to make sure that students know who they are and what they do, by posting projects that reflect the type of things new hires or traditional interns do, it allows students to gain a better understanding of what types of opportunities there are with that company and who that company is. In that same vein, even for large companies who have great brand recognition, there may be preconceived notions. Some students thinking, oh, well, you only apply to Microsoft if you're interested in coding or if you're majoring in computer science. Well, no, those large companies also have marketing departments, HR departments, all sorts of different departments. And they can use micro-internships to highlight that those types of opportunities are available there too. It's a great way for companies to access new demographics. We highlighted some of those populations. Again, first generation, non-traditional student athletes, they can't always come to the career fair. They don't always have time in their schedule for the traditional internship, but they're often target talent that these companies really want to engage. So this gives you an opportunity to highlight to companies. This is a great way to reach those students. And it's nice to be able to offer local employers and your alumni a way to give back by creating opportunities while simultaneously getting something in the form of that on-demand project support. So how exactly does it work for companies? The first step is that they're going to create a Parker Dewey account. This is super easy. It takes less than 5 minutes, and there's no cost or obligation to creating the account or even to posting a project. If they post a project and for some reason they don't like any of the candidates, again, very rare, then they're not obligated to pick somebody. And obviously, they're not obligated to pay for a project where they don't pick someone. So once they post that micro-internship project, it is going to be out there for students to see and start applying to. Again, the platform makes it very clear that these are to be short-term, focused on a specific deliverable. And once it's out there for students to see and apply, they're going to start submitting those applications. And again, there are over 5,000 institutions represented by the talent on the Parker Dewey platform. And once they make their selection about which candidate they'd like to do these projects or which candidates, they can also hire multiple, that is when the company will receive the invoice from Parker Dewey. From there, they pay Parker Dewey. We take care of all that administrative stuff in terms of getting the payroll information. So all the company has to work about is making sure that the student has the context and the resources to do a great job on their project. If you're interested in a more in-depth view of exactly what it looks like for companies to post, or if you want to share this with some employers you already know, I'm putting a link in the tab right here. We do an overview specifically for employers that goes more in depth about the benefits. We do this once a month. So our next one is coming up on Thursday. So if you're thinking of someone right now, I recently had a conversation with this local company, or someone reached out and wondered if our students could do a project, but it wasn't enough to do an internship. Or if a larger company was saying, hey, why don't we get enough applicants from these students? Please feel free to put that in front of them to share it. And I see a question, is it possible to learn what universities have been successful in helping international students? We have seen a good number of universities that have made this work, but I'll share one of our examples right off the bat here. And this is Sai Chandu Mati. He did a micro internship that led to him having experience that he really felt was crucial in him ending up getting his full-time job in the United States. He said that having that experience and that recommendation from someone in the US was a big deal in terms of him securing that opportunity. So this student was a graduate of Texas Tech University. So that's one example. And if we hop over to those student success stories, I'll just give you a couple others real quick. This recent success story is also an international student, also ended up getting a full-time offer in the United States and felt their micro-internship was a crucial part of that. Ricardo was from Pittsburgh State University. And an interesting thing about Ricardo is he did micro-internships both before and after graduating. So he did it through CPT and he did them through OPT. So Pittsburgh State is a great one to connect with, to talk about how they've gone about doing this. There's some other international student success stories, but those are two just right off the bat in case that's helpful. And on that note, folks, if you have questions or if you want to put those questions in the chat, as is hopefully evident, I am keeping an eye on the chat. Happy to answer those questions as we go through. So just to give you a little bit of a high-level overview, though, of why this is so beneficial for employers, is not only are they getting that project support, but it also has some really exciting longer-term outcomes that folks really need when they're looking at recruiting. And one, again, is that expanded reach to different demographics. And I want to highlight that over 80% of the students and recent graduates who are selected for micro-internships come from historically underrepresented populations in the workforce. This is something we're very proud of, and we especially want to highlight it next to traditional paid internships. Because when we look at traditional paid internships, barely more than a quarter, only 26% are going to those students from historically excluded populations. And we attribute the difference to the fact that even though those traditional internships are paid, students from those populations just don't always have the time to engage in those traditional opportunities. But when it comes to micro internships, it's accessible, it fits in their schedule, and they're hungry for that experience, which is why we see so many of them applying and getting selected. And to be clear, this is happening blindly from the part of the companies. They don't know who falls in those demographics. That's not something that is included in their view. It's happening organically. Micro internships can also have some really nice cost benefits for companies. As folks who work in career services are probably aware from talking to their recruiter friends, campus hiring can get pretty expensive pretty quickly. Sometimes folks are spending thousands of dollars to get students and recent graduates to commit to a role. And we see in studies that less than half of those recent graduates are even going to stay in that first full-time role for longer than a year. So they're putting in all this time and all this effort. In less than 12 months, that recent graduate is going to go, this isn't the fit that I was hoping it was going to be. Alternatively, when companies are using micro internships, not only is there the potential for significant savings, but they're seeing some really nice longer term outcomes from hiring students who have engaged in micro internships. Because 98% of those recent graduates are staying in that first full-time role for longer than 12 months. And to be clear, sometimes it's because those students did a micro internship thinking this is the industry, this is the company, this is where I want to be, and realized even with that short project, ooh, this isn't the fit that I thought it was going to be. And now I can take that information and find somewhere that is going to be a better fit. Alternatively, sometimes it's students and recent graduates who are taking a project with a company they've never heard of because they know how to do the project and they want real world experience. And then they get into it and they talk to the supervisor and they learn about the company by doing the project. And then they go, well, this is actually somewhere I could see myself. This is somewhere I could grow. This is somewhere I could start my career. And they have the opportunity to do so and make it somewhere where they can stay for longer than 12 months and grow. So if you're interested in hearing more about the employer side of things, how companies have used this, how they've benefited, I'm going to put some employer testimonials in the chat as well. So feel free to check those out. As you'll see here, there are companies from all different types of industries, of all different sizes, and these companies have used micro internships to support all different types of departments, but this gives you a nice overview. Also want to make it clear this is not an exhaustive list. We only publicly highlight those companies who have already publicly acknowledged their Parker Dewey usage and talked about us first. So this is just a handful of those companies using Parker Dewey. So now that we've talked about benefits for students, how it works for companies, I want to get a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of exactly what the student experience looks like. Reminder before we dig in that we, Parker Dewey, are the employer of record. So our role is to keep an eye on those opportunities. We're the ones getting the payroll information from the students. We're the ones that are making sure they have everything they need in the project. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump in and show you what it looks like. When students first create their account, the first thing they're going to be prompted to do is set up their profile. Now, not all of these pieces are required, but just like any other application, we find that the students who make the most of these different sections are more likely to be selected. So for example, those who add a brief personal statement about what they're looking for, what skills they're bringing, those who add highlighted experience, even if it's just relevant classroom experience, if they link to a LinkedIn, and definitely those that upload a resume. We have seen from companies a real preference for candidates who have a resume, even if there's not much on it yet. They just appreciate that they've taken that step and are putting that professional foot forward. Once they've set up this profile, it gets attached to every project they apply for, and they can make updates to it at any time. So for example, once they secure their first micro internship, they're encouraged to come back and add that experience to their experience section. Once it's set up, they can hop over to this profile or the dashboard where they're going to be able to see the opportunities. Now you'll notice we do not have a lot in the way of filters, and that is intentional, specifically why we don't have a filter for major. We have seen students and recent graduates who have ended up getting full-time job offers as a result of micro internships that would have never popped up if they had been able to say, show me projects just related to XYZ major. And that's why we encourage students to look through and be open to the different ways their skills could be used for different projects. You never know where it might lead. Now, companies do have the ability to feature projects to specific schools. So if a company has done that and there's a project exclusively available for your students, They're going to see that here under the featured project section. Underneath that, they'll see all open micro-internships. Now, something else that's important to note about micro-internships is, again, they're on demand. And what that means is they move quickly. Most projects are only posted for a week or less before they make a selection. I've even seen some projects, they got a qualified candidate within just a couple of hours, and they selected that candidate, and that project was only there and visible for a few hours. So what that means, because they cycle so quickly, is there are always opportunities on the platform, but it's not like other platforms where it's a ton of opportunities at any given moment. These projects are going to be here. They're going to quickly make selections, and new projects are going to come and take their place. So that's why it's important to encourage students to log in regularly. So looking at the micro-internships, if they decide they're interested in a project, they can hit the drop-down. They'll learn more about the project description, the company itself. They'll see the anticipated start date. So you can see this one's going to select someone within just a few days, when they'd like the project to be done, and the estimated number of hours. And it's estimated because micro-interns are paid based on completion of the project, so they don't have to actually track their time. They can see whether it's on-site or remote. Again, the majority are remote, and they can filter if they only want to see remote opportunities. And the math has already been done. So what the micro-intern sees here is the 90%. This is the amount that they will be paid if they are selected for and complete this micro-internship. So if they decide they're interested, they can hit apply. And this first question, why do you think we should select you, is always built in. So this is a great one to practice answering with your students, and also an efficient and effective way for companies to determine if someone's going to be a good fit. Sometimes it's the only question. If the company decides, as this one has, they do have the ability to ask additional questions and determine what those questions are. These are not meant to be essay questions. These are not meant to be cover letters. In fact, we've seen the most effective response is typically somewhere between 2 to 4 sentences. But as much as a student can show, as opposed to just telling in their responses, that's what we've seen really make a difference. So for example, of just saying, you should select me because I have social media experience, saying you should select me because I have social media experience. For example, I've used social media platforms XYZ and ABC formats to accomplish ABC, whatever it may be, but giving a little example. So the company is not only being told that you can do the project, but they see, even if it's just from classroom experience, how you've applied those skills before, if you're a student applying. Once your student submits the application, they'll be able to see its status here in the applied section. If it is still being considered, they'll see it in active. If they are no longer being considered for that opportunity, they'll be aware of that status because it will move into past applications. Hopefully, however, it'll have moved over into selected, and at that point, they will receive an email letting them know with next steps. Now, we've talked about how to set up a profile, so I'm going to kind of skip through these things. We've talked about how they can look at the opportunities, how these answers matter, and also want to make it clear what the employer is seeing on this side of things. So you can see all the applicants over here. They're able to click into any one of these, and they'll be able to see the information from that applicant's profile, as well as their responses to those questions. Now, at this point, you can see here, they do have the ability to send the candidate a message. So if they have a follow-up question, they can ask it. And some companies might request a brief Zoom interview to see if it's a good fit. But a lot of the time, because these are so low risk, low commitment, so cost effective, a lot of companies will make their selection from what you see here, the combination of the profile and the application responses, without any further interview process. And that allows things to move really quickly, but it's also why it's so important for your students and recent graduates to make sure their profile is complete and their application responses are thoughtful and that both are free from grammatical errors. Because in a lot of cases, this is the entirety of their opportunity to make an impression and the whole interview process. And then the next step, that work gets done. So as mentioned, we encourage the students in the companies to have a kickoff conversation and to make sure that micro-intern has all the context and all the resources they need to do a great job. Both sides are informed that if they have any questions, need any support, something unexpected is going on, they're having trouble getting in contact with the other side, whatever it may be. These things happen rarely, but if they do occur, get in contact with us and we can help them figure it out, whether it's reaching out to the company ourselves to see what's going on or vice versa, reaching out to the student. But again, they're not needed most of the time because over 98% of the time, these micro interns are not only meeting, but also exceeding company expectations. And we're also seeing it lead to some really exciting career readiness outcomes as well. So for those of you who aren't familiar, these things that you see along the chart, these are the career readiness competencies as defined by the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And what they did was a nationwide survey asking companies across industries, what are the skills that you want to see in your new hires? And these are the things that came to the top, again, across industries, across the nation, that they're looking for folks who know how to manage their own careers, who can communicate, who can think critically. You can read across the rest of the axis here. But we've been asking recent micro interns, what, if any, impact they feel their micro internship has had on these competencies? And again, someone who comes from career services, this is data that I am particularly excited about because as you can see across the board, the most common response from recent micro interns is feeling like they improved a lot, followed by improved a little. And even if they don't feel like they changed in terms of ability in that particular competency, they're more likely to report that they built confidence than they are that there was no change at all. So if that's something of interest to you, you want to really understand, well, how is this going to help my students grow? What are the outcomes? I am going to put this in the chat as well. All right. So if you are a partner, there are a couple different partnership options you may already have at your institution. We just released Parker Dewey Plus. We are very excited about it. So if you're a partner, would recommend making sure you know from whoever is the point of contact at your institution, well, what is our current level of partnership? If you are a basic no-cost partner, and if you're a partner, this is probably going to be most of you because again, Parker Dewey Plus is so new, then you're going to have landing pages to share with your students, landing pages that you can share with employers, and access to marketing materials that can really make it helpful for you when you are spreading the word. Again, whether you work in student services, whether you're faculty, or whether you're in career services, this is all accessible to you. If you are a Parker Dewey Plus partner, then that means whoever has been established as points of contact also have access to on-demand data that allows them to see what your students have been up to, who's been successful with applying, what companies are they micro-interning with, and the cost of a Parker Dewey student ambassador, selecting one of your own students as a micro-intern to spread the word, is also included in that $2,000 a year subscription. You may also be from a school that perhaps has already established a program. Maybe your institution got grant funding or a donation, and they are using that to cover the cost for specific companies of engaging your students in these micro internships. So if that's the case, you have even more resources accessible to you, but good to ask. Typically, the point of contact is the career centers. Sometimes it might be in different parts, but tends to be the career centers. So check with them to see if you're not already sure what level of partnership you have. Now, if you are someone who's already a partner, you know you're a partner and you're going, well, hey, wait, I want to learn more about Parker Dewey Plus. This is news to me. I'm going to put this link in the chat as well, because again, this new option is brand new. So if you want to learn more about that, please don't hesitate to do so. Now, maybe you're coming to us today from an institution going, I have no idea if we're a partner, or maybe I'm sure we're not a partner, but I still want to share this with my students. You 100% can. Parker Dewey is available to all students across the United States, again, as long as they meet that criteria of being 18 or older and affiliated with a higher education institution or one of our existing partner training programs or boot camps. So even if your school is not a partner, you can share this with your students. Here is a link where they can come and sign up just through our Parker Dewey page. So I'm going to put that in the link as well. Now, as you saw for those folks who are already partners, we do have a basic no cost option. There are some really nice benefits that come with that, including the ability to request your data up to once a year. So if you would like to establish partnership, please don't hesitate. You're going to get a follow-up email with these resources. I believe there will be a link to meet with us in there. So if you want to set up partnership, you can do that. You're going to see more about what is included in that in the upcoming slides. So for those of you who are thinking, we may be a partner, I don't know, I'm not totally sure, here are some tips to tell if you are already a partner. All Parker Dewey partners have these landing pages that allow them to easily spread the word to different audiences. Now, the older version is our general landing page, and that looks a little bit something like this. This is something that we were creating from 2020 to fairly recently, and it's got a little bit of information for all your audiences. It's not something that we're really creating new anymore, but something that has these links, and we can see in your data if students have come from these pages. Now, the reason we're not really using this page anymore is because since these pages were first designed, we have built so many resources and tools that we found it just wasn't effective to try to speak to all audiences with one page. So what we are recommending now, instead of just one page, is a combination of 2 pages. One page to engage your students and your recent graduates who may be interested in applying for these opportunities, and then a separate page to share with your employers and your alumni who may be interested in posting them. Now, that stated, if you're a partner that established partnership a while ago and maybe hasn't touched base with us in a minute, check at info.parkerdewey.com. And then whatever the URL for your institutional website is, put that slash and then that there. And that is going to be where that general page would be if you are a Parker Dewey partner and that's the page you have. Now, some folks may have already updated that page to our new recommended student-facing page, or they may have started with a link that is, again, that info.parkerdewey.com. Then whatever the URL for your main website is going to be, /students. So this is another thing to type into your web browser. If you're not sure, if something pops up here, then you are a Parker Dewey partner. So here is an example of that page in action, or actually I'm going to go to our template here because we've updated it. This would have your logo, your colors. It explains to your students that micro-internships are short-term, paid, typically remote, all times of year, all those things we've talked about. It lets them know what they can expect from their experience on the platform, and it gives them resources to help them be successful along the way, including links to regularly scheduled events, communication tips, and if they have questions about eligibility or how micro-internships work, again, a lot of those same things we've been covering today, you'll see that on that page. The final page that you may have if you're a partner is specifically a company-facing page. So you're probably recognizing a pattern at this point. That's going to be at info.parkerdewey.com/your institutional URL. But there are 2 different options this could be under. We were calling it different things at different times. It might be /featured because we were highlighting specific featured projects, or it could be /companies. So here's an example of what that page looks like, explaining to companies what micro-internships are, what they can expect from their experience on the platform, giving them some templates. If they want to attend our webinar demonstrations, they've got that access, frequently asked questions, and if they still have questions, they are welcome to connect with us. So if you have any of these pages, again, info.parkerdewey.com/your institutional URL, or institutional URL /students, or institutional URL /companies or featured, that is how you can know very quickly if you're a Parker Dewey partner. If you're like, this lady just said a lot of something, I don't know how to check, I would just want somebody to tell me, you're also welcome to email us at schools@parkerdewey.com, and we'll be happy to tell you if your institution has already established a partnership. Now, once you've established if you are a partner and you have those resources, or if you just want to share out that general link and you haven't set up a partnership yet, you have access to our Parker Dewey Marketing Toolkit. And this toolkit is designed to make it easy for you to spread the word about these opportunities to all your different audiences. So whether you're trying to engage alumni, employers, faculty, students, whatever it may be, you'll notice we've got content in a wide range of formats. So as we get into the fall, for example, if you're looking for social media, you want something that's kind of fun, you could click into our holidays. You can see for Halloween, we've already got images, captions, hashtags, things that are easy for you to grab, basically plug and play. And that's just one example. We've got all sorts of different formats. Now, on that note, there's a lot of content in this toolkit. And what we've heard from partners is it is oh so helpful, but because there's oh so much of it, they don't always have the time to go through and figure out exactly what's there or when they need it. So there are a couple of things we do to make that easier. One is if you're a partner, you will receive a monthly partner newsletter. So if you're already a partner, I encourage you, please keep an eye out for that newsletter, because every month we're going to be sending you content from this toolkit that is well suited to that time of year to be able to share out to students and employers. The other thing we encourage y'all to do is check out our partner checklists. Now, these are somewhat newer. What's encouraged here is you can make a copy. You'll see there's one for student-facing points of contact and another for employer-facing points of contact. And when you click on these, it's going to prompt you to make your own copy of this checklist in Google Drive. So you'll see all of these steps here are designed to make it so you are aware of micro-internships and so you're spreading the word. So first is familiarizing yourself with Parker Dewey. So you can see different ways to learn more if you want to attend. This webinar is on the list, those types of things. And to make sure you're spreading the word next to your target audience. So make sure it's on your career services platforms. Make sure it's on your public career services page. If you have presentations about your Career Center resources, make sure it's included there. And for each of these recommendations, you'll see that it links to content in our toolkit to make it easy. So for example, here is a simple single slide template. You're welcome to customize it. You can use that to pop into your existing presentations. Making sure you're sharing this with your colleagues. So somebody has likely done that with you since you're here in this webinar. Now share it with your students in newsletters and social media posts. And then here's some of those links to those reminders that you can share throughout the year. So make use of this toolkit. Again, if you're not a partner, you can just put that general page wherever you would normally put a partner specific page, but use the toolkit and use the checklist to help you keep track of when and how you're promoting Parker Dewey. Another thing we highly encourage you to do, if we've got some faculty in the room, is to share this in your classes. And again, we have tried our best to make it easy. This is some of the content in the toolkit targeted specifically to faculty. And that includes that single slide we already took a look at to share with your students in class. We also have some quick and easy language. If you want to include this in your syllabi, you don't have to create that from scratch. It is there and ready to go. If you ever want to pass out a flyer as part of your class, you can either customize this in Canva or you can print it out as it is. It explains to your students what micro-internships are, and it has different resources. You can even change this QR code to go directly to your partner-specific page if you are a partner. And we also have some professional communication tips for micro-interns. And these are specifically guided towards different parts of the Parker Dewey micro-internship process. But really, these communication tips can be helpful for your students in any sort of professional communication. So we highlight things like, make sure if a professional reaches out to you that you respond in a timely manner, that you use a professional greeting, that you keep it concise, that you're grateful for their time, those types of things. Another great resource, I know when I was teaching professional practices courses, I would have definitely incorporated to be able to have something easy to share with them while we're highlighting the benefits of professional communication. And you can also encourage your students to connect directly with us. We highlighted from that student-facing page that we have a number of different types of events where we are happy to connect directly with your students and help them increase their likelihood of success on the Parker Dewey platform. These include a monthly FAQ webinar. In this presentation, we go over how to set up your Parker Dewey profile, how to respond to questions like, why should we select you for this project? Basically just setting them up for success. On a monthly basis, we also do student office hours. These are typically attended by students who have applied to a few projects, but might be struggling to get selected. And in this session, we do profile reviews, we answer questions. That one's not recorded because we want students to feel comfortable asking whatever is on their mind related to micro-internships, and it's a very student-led session. We also do a quarterly webinar for students who may be interested in a niche industry or maybe have their eye on a specific company that they don't see posting micro-internships yet. During that session, we coach them using both LinkedIn and Handshake on how to find contacts at specific companies of interest and how to professionally reach out and inquire with that company about whether they would be interested in posting a micro-internship. We also have an entire toolkit to help you promote these events. So whether you want to send an email to your students, we've got that already set up for you so you can share it out. Or if you want to have a flyer around campus promoting these opportunities, again, you can download as is, or you can hop into Canva. You can use our template to add your logo, but these links are evergreen. So what that means is we change them every month to have the most updated information, but the links are always going to be the same links. So you can leave these flyers up in perpetuity, and they're going to be the right links for your students to come to these events. And we also encourage you to check out our Career Launchers LinkedIn page. On this LinkedIn page, you're going to find all sorts of resources that you might want to share out from your own LinkedIn account to be able to share with your students. So these are going to include things like reminders about those regularly scheduled events. They're going to include some tips, resources, perspective from micro interns who have recently completed projects. Our monthly newsletter for students is also posted on this page if you want to see what your students who are on the Parker Dewey platform are receiving. So if you want to give that page a follow, I just put the link in the chat there. It is highly recommended. And then on the other side of things, just like you want to share this with students, if you have employer contacts, make sure you are sharing this with them as well. We are seeing more and more that employers are using these micro internships intentionally as a way to build pipelines to longer term opportunities. So with that in mind, there are more and more using that opportunity to feature projects exclusively to local schools or maybe exclusively to their alma mater. So the best thing you can do to create opportunities for your students is to make sure those folks are aware of micro internships as a recruiting tool. And this flyer right here is a great way to do it. This explains where micro internships fit in for employers. So regardless of your role, if you're hearing a company saying, I want students at your institution to know who we are, or I want to reach students that I'm not seeing at the career fair, or I want to reach students earlier, or I want to reach students, or I want to engage students, but I don't have time to supervise a whole internship or anything like that. This explains how micro internships can help. These quotes from real micro interns highlight why this is appealing, why this is accessible, and the second page of this flyer answers those basic questions about micro internships. So this is a really great one for those of you who are in career services to have printed at the ready when folks are coming to visit or to take with you when you're doing employer visits. For folks who work in student affairs, bookmark this flyer if you ever happen to be talking to folks who want to engage your students. This is a great way to do it. And don't forget too, that you and your institution can also post micro internships for your own students. So if I was mentioning those things and you're thinking, well, that's us, we don't have an entire semester, but I do have a project, feel free to use Parker Dewey yourself. Also, feel free to invite your employers to connect directly with us so we can explain all these benefits and how they can use micro internships. So if you want to encourage your employers to come to all of our regularly scheduled events, we have a few of them. One is our Introducing Micro Internships webinar. This is a 30-minute session that we do once a month. It goes over what micro internships are and how to get started. Very straightforward. Each quarter, we also have a State of Campus Recruiting webinar. So this is where we cover different topics that are impacting the campus recruiting space, and we invite professionals, whether that might be students who are going through it or professionals who work in recruiting or folks from higher ed, to talk about what they are seeing. So if you would like to share this with folks, we encourage you to do so. Our next session is going to be coming up on August 27th. The topic for that one is going to be capturing the attention of Gen Z. So very timely. We hope that you will join us and that you'll encourage your employers to join us as well. And we also have a series where we talk about micro internships as a tool for accessing target demographics. So we focused on groups like student athletes, first and second year students, non-traditional students, liberal arts students, first generation students. Next one is probably going to be focusing on international students, but by sharing this with your employers, they can learn if one of these is a target demographic for their organization, how micro internships can help, or they can sign up for the next one to be able to attend live and hear directly both from a student who's part of that population, as well as employers who have used micro internships intentionally to engage with those folks. And if you're looking for even more ways to engage employers, you're thinking, I see how this could benefit a lot of folks I've been talking to. We also have a webinar a few times a year focused specifically on that topic, where we go even more in depth into some of these resources and ways to engage your employers. So we encourage you to check that out. If that is of interest, I'm putting the link in the chat again. See, the next one isn't for a while, not until November 7th, but this is the case for most of our recurring webinars. If you scroll down just a little further, at any time, you can access the recording and the slides from the last presentation. But what we really encourage you to do, folks, is make this your own. As you've seen, we have a lot of templates, a lot of resources, a lot of materials to help you promote micro internships to students, to employers, to everyone. But the most successful partners are ones like FAMU, who take those tools and they really make it their own. They put their brand to it and they spread it widely. Their students have been among some of the most successful on the Parker Dewey platform. And that's because they have done such a great job of spreading the word to their students, to the employers, like I said, to everyone. And regardless of your role at your institution, whether you're faculty, whether you're career services, whether you're student affairs, whatever it may be, you have contacts, both student contacts and employer contacts, that would benefit from being aware of this. So we encourage you to please take advantage of those materials that we're covering today and spread the word widely. And another benefit, again, for partners when you do so is being able to see the impact of the efforts that you're making. Now, note that Parker Dewey data, even if you are a partner, can only be sent to listed points of contact. So again, if you know you're a partner, but you're not sure who that point of contact is, please feel free to reach out to us at schools@parkerdewey.com. We'll let you know. And that way, if you want to ask them to request data, if they haven't done their annual pool or anything like that, they can reach out, we can get that, and they can share it with you. Currently, data can be requested by partners up to 4 times a year. So if you haven't been getting data pools yet, now's a great time, again, to reach out, see who those points of contact are, and see what your students have been doing on the platform. Quick note that starting in 2025, certain steps on our partner checklists will be required before data can be requested. And this isn't meant to be arduous. This isn't meant to add something to the point of contacts plate. These are pretty straightforward things that are designed to help make it so when we pull your data, it's more likely that there are exciting things to share there. An additional annual report in 2025 can also be earned when partners host a webinar for employers, because our whole goal at Parker Dewey is to create more opportunities for your students. And if you're intentionally engaging employers and engaging alumni and making them aware of this resource, well, that's likely to lead to more opportunities. And we want you to be able to know the impact of those efforts. So again, starting in 2025, those data pools will be limited for basic partners to once a year. But if you want to get a second one every year, you can always host a webinar for your employers. And just want to remind you, very high level overview of some other ways that you can help your students succeed. If you're not already, again, regardless of what your role is, make sure that your alumni engagement team is aware of this. We have seen some really cool outcomes with schools that have been very proactive about making sure their alumni know. And it's a win for everyone, because for the alumni, they're getting to give back and create an opportunity for students who are where they once were. And for the students, it's a win because these alumni are graduates of the programs they're now in. And the projects that they're posting tend to line up very well with the interests of your current students. We've talked about it a lot, but make sure you engage those local employer partners or the bigger employer partners or the nonprofit employer partners. Whatever employers are out there that want to engage your students, make sure they know about this. Engage your grant writing team. If you're applying for a grant, micro-internships are a great thing to include in there. It allows you to customize a program and really make sure that there are opportunities exclusively available for your students. And as quickly referenced before, don't forget that y'all can use micro-interns yourself. So if you're getting ready for the career fair and you need somebody to do some promotional stuff for the fair, consider hiring a micro-intern. If you've got a big event coming up in student affairs and you need someone to do some support or maybe design flyers or maybe design a whole marketing campaign for that event, maybe your current student staff doesn't have the time, that's not in their purview, you might consider selecting a micro-intern for that specific project. And for those of you who are engaging your grant writing team and trying to do something larger scale, a little bit more intentional, we also have a webinar a few times a year where we encourage you to learn more about these funded programs and how they can help you achieve unique institutional goals. So for those of you who are interested in that, I'm putting that in the chat as well. And I know I've been very into putting things in the chat, but also want to highlight, folks, you're all going to get these slides and the recording afterwards as well that have all of these links that I'm putting in the chat. So with 5 minutes to go, as far as what is next goes, what do I do now with all this information this lady has told me in the last hour? The first thing I would recommend is understanding the current nature of our partnership, if there is one. So if you heard about this or someone just forwarded you a link and you're not sure, are we even partners with Parker Dewey? Reach out to us. We will be happy to let you know. And if you're not already a partner, we will be happy to help you set up, at the very least, a no-cost partnership to make it easier for you to share this with your students. Step two, again, share it with those students. Even if you're not a partner yet, get that link out there, get your pages set up for you, because those pages are going to include all sorts of resources to help your students be successful. And that again includes the links to those events, the professional communication tips, and all those FAQs your students may be asking about micro-internships. It covers all of it. And then step number three is to share micro-internships even more widely. So share again, local employers, large-scale employers, alumni, anyone who wants to engage with your students and has professional tasks that they could use some support with is someone who should be aware of micro-internships. So with that, folks, if you have any questions, again, I'm keeping an eye on that chat. I'm also happy at this point to unmute you or allow you to unmute. So if you want to raise your hand, if you have a question, please feel free to put that hand up there. But while we wait for those questions, just want to say thank you so much for your time today. It is always a pleasure to share micro-internships with folks, to make sure that you all know how this benefits all your stakeholders, your students, your recent graduates, your employers, your alumni, all those folks, and very much looking forward to helping you spread the word and seeing the results.